So really the launch of it is 2 weeks in advance, I think, right, Siri?
Right.
So nothing really right now. We'll get you some information, and once we send that email out, then everyone's good to start firing away on your social media and newsletters to try to rally people. The goal of this is to acquire new and more donors. It's not a dollar thing. So we focused it on donors. It's kind of taking the place of the appeal we did last September when we asked for monthly support. And so the whole goal is just get as many people making a donation. If there's new people, which there will be, now they're in the system as a donor to your team, and we can talk to them as donors and renew over time and that kind of stuff. As opposed to having a dollar goal. We're focusing on donors. So I think that's us, Brian.
Awesome. Any questions for Chris or Siri or Diana before we move on?
Yeah, sorry, is it monthly? What if we have monthly donors? Do they count in that?
So it's donations during that 8 days, those 8 days. So if someone, I guess, I don't know, if someone signs up for a monthly donation, is that one of the choices on the giving page, Siri?
Yeah, that should be a choice. I'll confirm though, Sean. So that should be a choice. So it'll go to the usual giving page. But so it should have those options in terms of recurring gift or just a one-time giving. But it will be during those 8 days. So that's the parameters of the campaign, is just that time frame.
Yeah, so say I'm a monthly donor already and I donate, my monthly donation kicks in that first week. Does that count?
No, it'll be a new donation. So that's why we're calling it a special appeal. So it's if you're a monthly donor and you want to participate in helping women's hockey get to this goal, you need to make an additional gift.
Any other questions? Okay, awesome. Thanks, Chris, Siri. Welcome, Diana. The next item, kind of an odd agenda item, but just so you know, the way we've tried to maneuver a little bit how we communicate with all of you as the coaches. And I'd say over the last few years with our, I call our IU team being me, Gilbert, Lauren, and Marshall, it's changed a little bit. Where we are right now, and hopefully you feel it's working fine, is we're basically having any communication like that will come from my inbox. What we were feeling before is that I would send some stuff, Gilbert might send some stuff, Lauren might send some stuff, a Warrior info email might send some stuff, Jenny might send some stuff. Now Jenny sent something today, but we've put like 95%, I would say, will come through me. And it really is trying just to simplify so that you can go back, you search one email, you can search my name. If you've missed a few, you know where to find the content. So if someone has feedback right now on that, you're obviously more than welcome to share it, but just know that's some of the things we're talking about. How can we be efficient? Because we know there's a ton of information. Lately, I've been trying to do small, short emails that you read one paragraph, you get the facts, instead of waiting till there's 7 or 8 things and making a list of it, just to keep you informed because things are changing. So I think it's good for you to know what our strategy is. And if you have some feedback on it, great. But that's how we've been approaching it. The next topic, this probably is short, even though we could talk about it for an hour, is the double vax stuff. So you have probably seen some announcements from some other of our member institutions in Ontario that have announced that athletes must be double vaxxed in order to compete. That has not been announced from our institution. I am not sure if it will be. I can say Rolly has spent many hours and some holiday hours in meetings and conversations as part of this on our campus. But as of today, we have not been told that it will be announced, but we haven't been told it won't be either. My advice to you with your athletes, this is what I've told my guys, is I've just said, if there's a purpose why you do not want to get vaccinated, that's obviously your decision. You should talk to me and just keep me in the loop so I'm aware of that. If you haven't got double vaccinated simply because you just haven't got around to it, you probably should, because there is a chance that could be a determining factor on whether you're allowed to compete this year or not, even though I cannot say that today. So what are some questions? Will it be announced by our school? I have no idea. I can tell you there's been hours upon hours in the last 2 weeks of the discussion. Will other institutions let non-double vaxxed athletes come to their campus when they have a rule of double vax? Those are the things that are being discussed in the OUA meetings and are being worked through right now. So unfortunately, some of these decisions might come where there's very little time to react prior to the season. Again, everyone knows that, but it's just so foreign. And it's not going to come from the OUA. I can say that. It's not going to mean OUA down. It will end up landing in the hands of the members. So I'm happy to answer questions on it. I don't have many answers, but if there's comments on it, feel free now to unmute and go for it. Okay. And if you think of stuff later, just bring it up later. The next item was the training camps, fall schedules, walk-ons, kind of group that all into one. So Gilbert has been tasked to do the scheduling communication really between IU and BizOps. So he's kind of the conduit from all of you through to business ops to make sure we can get all the bookings done. So he's in the middle of that. I think he's probably talked to the large majority of you, probably more so our part-time coaches and our fall sport coaches, our rink and court coaches. We have your content. BizOps hasn't felt they are ready to dig their teeth into that yet, but we do have your requests. And so from a scheduling side, continue to talk to Chris. Just understand that when you talk to Chris, unfortunately, is part of it all is it's just not a one email change. He then comes back to our BizOps teams. Our BizOps team usually connects with our campus rec group. And then it's kind of everyone on the same page before we do some confirmations. So you may want answers quicker than you get, but that is the process that we currently have in place to work through to our schedule. Training camps. You will have your dates. You should all know those. If you don't, we will, I guess would be best just to reach out because I think we've shared the dates of when you're allowed to start. The training time prior to the start of your training camp, you are allowed to do some training. So we'll pick men's hockey because I know that one better. So we're allowed to start, I think it's the Monday after Labor Day weekend, opposed to traditionally it's a Tuesday after Labor Day weekend. We can have time. We're on the ice tonight. It just can't be mandatory. So our players that are in town can skate, but we can't say, hey, everyone needs to be here on whatever today's date is, August 9th, because we're going to do video session and we're going to work on our power play. But for those that are in town, you're allowed to train. So we are not interested, we being the department, in kind of playing games with that and going, oh, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, let's call a practice and have everyone show up and do testing. Oh, but we said it wasn't mandatory, but we had everyone here. That's not something that we are supporting. So again, you can continue to do what you're doing now with the training, but we're not looking to play that game. The official training camp start dates of really having everyone there, doing some testing, obviously doing your true tryouts and your walkthroughs and whatever system stuff you're going to do is not allowed to start until you have your training camp date. So you could ask, I'll talk on walk-ons in a minute, but if you want to ask questions about either scheduling to Gilbert, if it's just your sport, maybe hold on and ask him after. If it's a question that you think would benefit others, and ask it now, or on the training camp stuff, ask that now.
Brian, I just have a question around testing. So we can't have testing before training camp dates, but what if we're using it as a means for team selection?
So sorry, I probably didn't word that well. So you can do testing if they're in town. So let's say you have some athletes, I have some athletes here, and Hoffer wants to, have them do the beep test. And then
we just can't mandate that they be present for it.
Yeah, you can't have, like, in years past when it wasn't as strict, you'd actually maybe have 2 days before camp was supposed to start, you might have your testing day and everyone's in town and you're all together and it's almost like a team builder type activity. Mm-hmm. That concept isn't there, but if you have athletes that are here and in town and you and or Hoffer want to work through some of the stuff without mandating they're here, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for us on schedule
or
training camp?
training camp?
Hi, Brian. My video's down. Sorry, it's John O'Brien. Just a quick question. Is there something that we can put up on the web pages, whether it be soccer, volleyball, whatever, that we can put for walk-ons? These are the mandatory medical forms or some sort of forms that'll have to be filled in prior to them getting there.
Yeah, John, I think it's yours that I might, oh, there you go. So we have that, I'd say 95% settled as of this morning. There's, Rolly and I talked things through on the weekend a couple of times on, again, it's easy to make a plan, but we also have to have the plan approved before we roll it out. So I think we're really close to being able to roll that out. And here's what it's going to be like. Just wait till you get the email. But what it's going to be is they're going to do their med form, similar to what the information that you saw for your committed recruits who were in their first year that didn't have their walk card yet. They're going to do their waiver, and then they're going to end up getting temporary access through their walk cards. So like a walk-on access to tryouts. And then if they make your team, they'll have to be flipped through internally to become a varsity athlete, and then we'll give them a timeline to check off all of the other expectations with whether it's modules or completing the rest of the med form and all that stuff. I think we've done a pretty good job of communicating that via email, which is probably best so you can forward step by step. Expect to see an email with that content. I won't say tomorrow because who knows, but I'd say by the end of the week for sure. And we are talking about getting that onto the website as well, so that those surfing around that maybe you don't even know about can see it. But we are going to ask the process is that if someone wants to try out for your program, is they have to reach out to you. Because if they have their forms and show up with it filled out, they actually can't really show up because they wouldn't have got approval to be in it. We wouldn't have record of their med forms, and they aren't allowed on site because they didn't register. So in order to register, we're gonna need their information. So we're leaning at the content. Someone has to reach out to you. You then have the forms right there, or you have an email that you can just forward to them. They need to do those steps of the forms. And if they don't do it, it's probably a pretty good sign that they're maybe not as committed as you want them to be. And maybe they were just asking around. Once those forms are done, we then need that name and information so that we can get them into the system. So as you can probably imagine, this isn't a 30 minutes before a tryout process. We will have this information I'll commit to by the end of the week. And we'll start to build it out sooner the better. When we have names, we can start getting them in the system and preparing them for that. I don't know if Gilbert or Lauren or Laura want to add anything to what I just said, then feel free.
No, that sounds pretty good, Brian. Yeah.
Okay, so
I have a question, Brian.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, and this is just for my own education as well. The fact we have to have tryouts is mandated by the university or U Sport or what?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jackie. I actually had that on the list to comment on, so glad you asked it. So I don't know if I've ever read anywhere that it's mandated, to be honest with you. It could be. I've read a lot of the documents in the last 5 years, but I don't remember ever seeing that. I can say that Rolly and because I do agree with it, we have encouraged that and placed it, I would say, as an expectation to all of us to allow the students an opportunity. So part of my belief in it, I know Rolly feels the same, would be, well, one, a massive part of our budget comes from the students. So that perception expectation, which I think is pretty common at lots of institutions, to have the opportunity to give it a shot. And even if some don't make it, for some of them, that's a neat experience, even if they don't get to make it. I know I've had this over the past. I'm sure some of you have it as well. Maybe someone tries out, they're not at this level, but they love the sport and they become our manager. They become our videographer. They become who knows, maybe they get into coaching and, if you can't play coach, so maybe that comes with them. Maybe their neighbor is like your top recruit and you weren't responsive to an email from them or didn't give them a chance, and that creates a negative feeling. So that's the sorts of discussions that Rolly and I have had, and we've never really considered it differently other than through COVID, which this is part of the discussion Rolly and I had on the weekend, is that we felt as long as they follow these processes and they do the declaration and they should still have the opportunity. So the one thing you may want to do, this is what I'm going to do, and it will be your choice, and all their sports are a little different, is I'm not going to allow a walk-on to come right in with our team. I'm going to do a separate walk-on session, even if it's only 3 or 4 athletes, which men's hockey usually doesn't get many more than that. Maybe we get 7 or 8 on a good year. But I'm going to at least have some information, see their skill set, and I'm going to tell them up front, I'm going to now determine if you can come in and be part of our training. Now, in our training, it's full contact too. So if I sense someone isn't strong enough skater and there's a potential injury, then that would be an easy reason not to allow them to continue.
I see all your points, but mine's a bit different, and I'll do what you say, but my roster is so jammed. In fact, I should be dropping people, and we operate on time. So I have time standards, and you have to have those times for me to even look at you normally. So, I just feel like I'm leading them on when I know that, and I can't take anybody, Brian, even though I'd like to, who I think maybe they might make the time down the line. So anyway.
Jackie, maybe you and I can chat on that a bit offline, but one approach might also be to just map out some of that on your page. Like we're going to have a walk-on page on our site, but there can also be some specific information on your teams if you want to share that. And that might deter, like I honestly, if we use men's hockey, let's say 7 players come in, I'll meet with them before and explain the level of hockey. And I usually have 3 that decide not even to go on the ice. Oh, geez, I didn't realize it was that strong, or in your case, that fast. I'm out of here. Thanks for talking to me. See you later. And so,
you know what, Brian? I thought that would happen. And in my first few years here, I had people turn up, people were swimming over them, and they kept on coming back. Anyway, we'll discuss it later.
it's you, Jackie. They've all heard about your coaching style. And they want to be part of it. So let's chat a bit more offline. And if someone else has a scenario, like that is the uniqueness, like we're talking to 25 different sports right now, is there's going to be some different scenarios that are specific to your sport, but you will get some directions on the walk-on vision and then try to adjust it to your sport. And when there's something weird, please reach out. Like we get it. One rule for all the different nature of our sports is challenging. Any other questions on fall schedules, training camps? I guess they're hand in hand, and or walk-ons. Okay. The double vax, we did golf tournaments. I'll do this quick. So I sent it to everyone instead of just the people that had expressed interest in the past of hosting I'll call it an alumni golf tournament. So I sent that information out. If you missed it, I know some of you might have holidays. It will be in your inbox probably from a week ago. So we are approving golf tournaments. So that was again up and down the ladder numerous times over the last couple months. The expectation is to follow the public health guidelines. And the one thing that would be slightly different depending on where you're hosting it is some regions are allowing shotgun style golf tournaments and some are not. We have decided internally that even if you're in a region that allows it, is we are not supporting it. And the rationale is really simple, is if you have a shotgun, obviously there's going to be at some point, there's going to be congregation of people, whether it's before or after. And since that's not allowed, there's really it's only going to lead to potential problems or breaking of the rules. So spent a fair amount of time on this. I ended up, Carla, our women's golf coach, and I, who talked quite a bit on it as well. Rolly and I talked numerous times, and that's where we've landed on it. But you can, and we've just asked to be in an approval process. So if you want to do it, just send me a quick note. It's all in the email, where it is, what the date. I want you to map out a bit of what you think you're going to make, just so that it is worth your time, especially our fall only sports. Like if you put a ton of time into this, we all want our money, but if you're only making $1,000, is it really worth all the time when your season's coming? I just want to make sure you've thought that through before you fully commit to doing it. But send me a quick summary of it, and then I'll get back to you right away. I just check with Rolly and make sure it's good, and then I'll get back to you. Golf tournaments, any questions? Okay, messaging, we did budgeting. So this is different because we have full-time coaches that see their budget a little bit different format and have access to a website that has where they can see it. And then we have some part-time coaches that it kind of gets emailed to them basically in an Excel form. From a budgeting side, I guess the overarching messaging is that our budget will not be in great shape this year. Our university has really looked after us. But we also they're not charging the athletics and recreation fee through the summertime, which has cost us some money because most of our money comes from that. We are not going to be firing people. We're still going to follow through with all expectations, but just have your approach to spending should only be if you need to. So maybe there's a year where you had a little bit extra money and you thought, oh, this is a perfect time to get a new set of practice jerseys. Like, we would say, no, unless you absolutely need it, it's not the time to get it, because we know that our budget will not be in good shape. But if you need something that's to run your program, then we're going to do that. So we're just watching the spending closer. Basically, every time someone spends money in IU, I receive a call or a Teams message or an email or a text. So all I'd ask is just stick to that model as we need it. And if something's a little bit out of that, hey, I wonder if we need it, just reach out to me. And I might say no, because I know what the expectations are through our department. But then when I have the knowledge, I can easily just make sure it rolls through when it comes through to me. So yes, you can spend. Yes, you can get things, follow the same processes, but it can only be when we really need it, not a chance to top up some stuff. The difference, the only thing I'll add on that would be if you've raised some money, because so some of us have had quite a few camps, then that money is always looked at a little bit differently than the operating, because your team has earned it. And we try to encourage you to spend it with the players that helped you earn it. Or if you have donations, that money has come to your program. So the team fundraised money and the donated money is looked at a little bit differently than that budget you get, we call from operating or from the university. But we also already know from numerous emails that I've sent, we're going to have some AFA challenges as well. So just keep that in mind with your spending, is we're not going to allow you just to spend all of your money, because we will have to save a bit in the pot. All of us will, in case we need it for AFAs. I hate that message on budgeting because I'd much rather give you your numbers. So trust me, I don't like it as a men's hockey coach any more than you like hearing how I just presented the budgeting. Any questions? Okay. Music, this will be coming down the line. So just letting you know, it'll probably end up through your captains or maybe through you to your captains, is we as a department will be having an approval process for the music that will be played for games. So when you just think of where we are socially over the last couple of years, you can imagine that some of the words and lyrics and connotations that are within some of the music that may have been played in the past, that will be monitored internally this year. And we will have an approval process, which will make its way again to you and or your captains. So that will be music that's played, because some teams right now, let's just call it a player shows up, gives their phone or whatever it is, and gives that to the person working the score clock to play the music. So we'll monitor that in advance. What we're going to ask you to do is to be cognizant and aware of the music that your athletes are playing in your team room, walking down the hallway, on the field. Obviously, it's going to be really challenging for us to approve music you're playing in your locker room, but we also don't want to have unacceptable music being blasted as kids and families and students at the University of Waterloo and staff members are walking by your room and there's disrespectful music that, again, 2 years ago might not have been perceived that way, but there's obviously been a massive change in society where today it would be, we would listen to that and go, that needs to change. So we want to be part of the positive change. So I don't have much more than that is coming, and we'll ask for your help and support on delivering that message. Great learning opportunity for you and your athletes to have those conversations. In my eyes, be a fantastic conversation to have.
Brian, is this a game day only thing, or is this all the time in terms of the approval? Because the locker room is their sacred space. That's their own private space. And if we keep the volume to a minimum, you would need permission on a day-to-day basis. Like, this is a slippery slope that we're going down here now, trying to the players can or can't listen to. I get it at the stadium on game day is one thing, but if it's in the locker room, like, who are we to say, okay, you need to get approval from whomever to listen to music? Like, not really liking that one, honestly.
Yeah, DA, so sorry, I may have thought it and just not spoken it well. So the approval side will be purely competition, like will be game day. Like, so that's the music over the speakers at an event. Because I know, I don't know all the sports. I know for hockey, we've had a player do ours, and I'm sure it's the same in some of yours. So that will be an approval process. The locker room stuff, I would say what we as coaches need to do is we just need to be maybe more cognizant than we've been of what's being played. Is there something you're not comfortable with? Is there something in your room that you think some athletes aren't comfortable with? How loud is it? So let's just say it's cranking and there's let's just go language. So we don't go to the side of race, which obviously can be something that will be discussed here. Just be aware of how loud it is with bystanders or whether your door's propped open, but also for those outdoor sports, like, is it your warm-up music that everyone can hear, or are you tucked away and it's a little quieter? And so those ones will be more asked for you to be aware of, have discussions. I would say if someone walks by, in your case, DA, say the football room, and music that's inappropriate is just blasting through, then you might not have had something said before, but you might now, because we would want you to help try to manage that. But the approval is purely the music over the speakers when we're hosting competitions.
Okay, that's fair. And then who do we send the approval to? Like, who are the judging bodies to dictate what's acceptable? You know what I mean? Obviously, if you go into back in the day, you go into the store and you see the principal advisory label and you knew this was content, but like, who's the music police?
Yeah, so I think Dan will be, we'll send out what the process will be, but I think it's going to end up going to Dan, and then probably, my guess is this, he'll probably go through and there'll be some songs that are question marks and he'll bring it back to our group and we'll decide, does a song that gets rid of the explicit words but is still that song, that's probably what will be approved, where maybe in the past, maybe that the cursing being in the song was being played. But I think it'll probably originally go to Dan, and then, like everything else, I think it's good. We end up talking about, so if there's 2 or 3 songs, he'll probably bring it back to the group, which would include me and Rolly and Gilbert or whoever and Lauren, and we'll talk it through. Yeah. The exhibition, I had that on there. I don't know if there's any questions on exhibition play. I feel our 2-term sports are probably set. Maybe there's some questions from our fall only sports. So I don't have anything other than, is there any questions on exhibition? Okay. And then the coach portal. So I sent a note, again, one of my kind of short, brief emails out of my inbox. There's the OUA are trying to take an approach to have a better path to communicate with their coaches. So they've created a portal that's for the coaches. And so the plan is when, because right now what happens, let's say something comes out specific, well, you get them from me. Someone comes out specific on your sport or with regards to eligibility or recruiting or what moratoriums. I send it to you and say, here, take a look at this from the OUA or U Sports. Their plan is, instead of that needing to go from their inbox to the associate director or to the athletic director, maybe to someone else, to the coaches, they'll still send it to the directors, but then it will go on to the appropriate spot in the portal. This is the first year of it. Will it be perfect? I don't know, but the goal will be to create a spot where you regularly go back to, because your rules and regulations are there, the OUA policies are there, any recent communications are there, and it becomes a landing spot for you to check in on. Again, it's the first year of it, so it'll probably take some time to build that habit, but that's the vision. I think it's really good because I think our department communicates well, but I can tell you it's a common complaint from a number of my peers in the hockey world. They ask me to send them their stuff. Like, our AD friggin' never flips us the stuff. Can you send it to me? And so I think there's a fair amount of that at some other schools. So this is supposed to, the goal of this is to improve the communication to our coaches of OUA information that is already being sent out, but just may not always make it to the coaches. That's the purpose. And so you have to register in that. The head coach can, I think the assistants can. Bert, did Conway or DA ever try that? Remember you and I emailed on that a little bit. Do you know if an assistant can sign up or not?
It only seemed like it was the head coaches as of right now.
Okay.
To me. So.
But it'll evolve, and maybe there's a spot where assistants can as well. I signed up for my area, but I don't have a full-time assistant right now, so I didn't look to have my guy log into it. But take a look at that email, and hopefully it's a positive thing. The last thing I had was AFAs. So AFAs are likely, finance has asked for us to have it in their inbox by the end of this week, with a plan of putting it into the Quest accounts by next week. So that would be, at this point, the only money that goes in is the money that you would have sent to me with committed recruits. So the $500 that has gone to females for the last 3 or 4 years that have met the regulations or met the requirements, that will always be later, because part of that is helping us meet the gender equity corridor of compliance in the OUA. The only money that will go out now is the money that you sent us for committed recruits. If you have a scenario that you don't want the money to go right now, for whatever reason, I'm not sure, there might be some, Bert, you and I can talk because your scenario is a little different, but I think for everyone else would probably be fine when it goes out. Then you can tell your athletes it should be next week. Once it leaves our inbox, it's purely over to finance, but they usually work pretty efficiently. And if I don't hear from you, then we'll continue to submit all of the money that you had sent to me probably within the last few weeks. We've done academic checks, and that's something we'll circle back with you as well. But we've gone through the process to make sure they're eligible. And now KCB's actually has the document right now going through and allotting the named awards. And then he's the final piece of the puzzle before it goes to finance.
Brian, I have a couple quick questions there. I had sent you and KCB a quick email with regards to one scenario for us. Maybe we can connect on that later. But a second question would be, if a student is full-time for one term or part of a term and then drops to part-time status, will that be impacted in AFAs that are given? I think you have to be a full-time student, but I just wanted to double check on how that might be applied if someone was to switch from full-time down to part-time or whatever.
Yeah. And so Ben, do you mean being full-time to start the term so that they can play season finishes and going to part-time? Or do you mean term 2 going part-time?
Yeah, probably term 2, but I just know with distance and that kind of thing as well, there's some consideration for one of our players that they may do it before the season starts. They may do it, partway through or even after, but still kind of navigating that one.
Yeah. So if it's so one, in order to be eligible, you need to be a full-time student, and the most we're allowed to give is up to it. Well, so the max is $4,500 or tuition. Women's hockey has their own pilot project, but everyone else is $4,500. So if they're full-time one term, chances are their tuition is going to be, at a minimum, probably $2,000 if they're taking 3 courses. Maybe that's at the low end. So in many cases, even if they're part-time, the second one, it can still cover their tuition and we're all good. But I would say if you have a scenario that you or anyone else that's just a little bit out of the ordinary, just talk to us directly on that offline, just so we're not, there's violations, there's sanctions now. So this never existed before, but the OUA has financial sanctions on schools that break AFA policy, which again, this is the first time ever that's going to happen, and it's going to come into place next year. And so that's someone getting $10 more than they're supposed to is a minimal violation, but so we'll have minimal repercussions, but it's still a violation that will go on file. And then there's obviously some bigger ones that happen. So please reach out to us, and we try to catch it all, but it's obviously your knowledge of your athlete situations is better than ours. So it's always helpful if you share it with us.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I have 2 questions. One, just for clarification, because last year we went with the split, right? If they were receiving the full 4,500, they got 2,250 in the fall term and 2,250 in the winter term. And I know that finance or advancement or whoever distributes the money wanted to do it singularly. Just to understand, so if they receive $4,500 at the start of the fall term and they're only taking 3 courses, 3 courses comes out to a tuition and fees at $2,175, let's say. Are they going to be receiving the remaining balance of that $4,500 now? I just wanted to I know that's how it was in the past, but I know with some of the new parameters and rules, that was one of the things that was kind of up in the air, and I didn't know where things landed with that.
Yeah, good question, Bert. So finance, so we used to so let's just stick with 4,500. I know some of you on here don't have those sorts of numbers, but many of you do. So so a few years ago, the finance department, we would give them that so-and-so is getting $4,500. They would take whatever their tuition was in term 1. So let's just call it 3,000. And if it was 3,000, they would take out the 3,000. They would hold the remaining 1,500 for term 2. Assuming they were in school term 2, they could get the remaining 1,500 because we can't give more than tuition. A few years ago, and then highlighted last year, we went to the half and half that Bert referenced. Brenda, who we deal with in finance, actually asked us if we could go back to the older method where that she would basically pay out as much as she can in term 1 of whatever that is. So if we use that $4,500 tuition, 3,000 example, but also if it's $4,500 and they're an engineer and they're paying $7,000 a term, then they're going to get their $4,500 term 1. For Bert's question about if they didn't get it in term 1, if they go to school in term 2, they'll get it then. But if they drop out of school, then we can't give more than their tuition. So if their tuition was $2,100 total, even if they were offered $4,500, we can only give the $2,100.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. That clears that for me. And then the other thing is that it's been brought to my attention recently, literally over the last 10 days, three of our players and one parent reached out to me inquiring about how AFAs were going to be distributed. And it was brought to my attention by the players and the parent that they were really happy with and I know Brenda doesn't want it, but the half and half. So as you said, the 4,500, so going 2,250 a term, that allowed them a greater opportunity to apply for more bursaries and financial aid. And so they've asked, like, can I get it split again? Because I was able to apply for way more bursaries and I was able to receive more money. And truth be told, they're all kids that are BIPOC, and they're all kids that are on student loans or OSAP. So I know that from a logistics standpoint, it's easier to just do the lump sum type thing. But now that it's been brought to my attention, something that I know everyone's on here, but something that maybe, and I know they want the information next week, but was just brought to my attention. So I wanted to talk about it because obviously anything we can do to help and give them at least an opportunity to apply for more money, I think we should be doing that. So that's just something I wanted to bring to your attention. And I don't know if any other coaches have had that conversation with any of their athletes either, but that's just something that's happened over the last 10 days with me.
So if anyone else has had that conversation, you can definitely either talk now or send me a note. Bert, maybe you and I connect on it, because we've, before we did the half and half, we used to wait and hold yours till the winter as well. I can say this, Brenda's really good to work with. And as long as we at our end are organized, and if there's a request of 10, 15 athletes that we want to go half and half, she'll support that. There won't be any issue with it. One of her biggest things that was happening is that there was the co-op factor. So she was holding back some money, and then someone's in co-op, and then they weren't in a term, and then they were getting paid in co-op. But then she was getting a bit of the other way too, going, geez, I'm an engineer and I could really use it now because I can get some money through the year. So it might be best to deal with some of these examples if we catch them. I know we probably might miss some, but in advance. And as long as I'm organized with the submission, they're very efficient. Yeah. So Bert, maybe you and I connect and just talk whether you want your money out fall or winter, and we can talk about some of those examples.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Brian.
Okay. And so that is all that I had on my agenda for today. Is there questions from any of you?
Ryan, I might have missed it, but did you say when our fall practice schedule is going to be released?
I don't have a date. They know, like BizOps knows we have it, and they just have, it's been a combination of the volume of work at now and some of them taking holidays, which unfortunately just slows things down. So they just haven't been ready for it yet. So our goal was by the end of this week was to have all fall schedules, including our 2-term sports, in the hands of BizOps by the middle of August was what they asked for, which will be the end of this week. And so I'm hoping like they'll put priority on getting the fall answers out quicker, because those training camps are coming a touch faster. But be honest with you, like the court sports and the hockey, which are the ones we're talking about, really aren't that challenging to do. So I'm hoping they can turn that around pretty quick. So maybe next week might be optimistic, but it's going to be in their inbox and being worked on starting next week.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, that's good. This is being, well, I should have said it before. It was recorded. I'll send this out to everyone. I'm happy to chat. I am on the ice at 6 and I'm at home right now. So if anyone wanted to stay on, Ben, we're on your request. So that one that you sent to me and Chris, I don't think either one of us emailed, but we got it. So I don't think we need to chat. We're good. And I don't know if anyone else wanted to chat on anything right now, but we'll sign off. And if you do, just maybe give me a call. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.